What is up, my beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of the Be Original Show, exclusively on WBDY. I'm your host, Kevin Oriel, aka DJ KO Yo, and today's featured artist is hot off of her Buckle Up tour, which shimmy and shaked and grooved in Florida, North Carolina, and Kentucky. Today, we'll be speaking to Maddy Walsh from Maddy Walsh and the Blind Spots and find out everything that's going on in her world. New tour dates, and new music. But first, let's listen to Yin Yang Boomerang right here on the Bundy Museum Community Radio Station, WBDY. That sounds like so much fun. How you doing, Maddy? Good morning.
I'm doing great. Good morning. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me.
My pleasure.
So this is how I came. So I'm from New York City, and I came up here about 5-6 years ago, and just got into the scene and really was amazed at the talent up here. Like, you would think that New York City has, of course they do have great players, but wow, Binghamton and this Southern Tier area is pretty loaded with great musicians. So I had started the Be Original show and focusing on local music. And at the end of the year, I didn't have anybody to interview because it was kind of like the Christmas time, New Year's time. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to do a show of all locals. And the manager here said, okay, we have a library of all these local bands. So I started going through the local bands. I started with A, and I got through the A's, and I got to B, and it was tons. It's like there's so much music. And I got to the Blind Spots, and I was like, oh, this is a cool name. Let me check this out. And I was blown away. I was like, why haven't I heard of this band before? And that's when I reached out to you. But as I reached out to you, as you remember, you were just going on tour, so it just wasn't going to happen. So for someone who doesn't know, hasn't heard of Maddy Walsh, not from the area, although it seems like you've been all over and you made a huge impact. Where did the band start? How did you start?
Well, I moved back. So I was in grad school in California. I was out at Cal State Sacramento, and I moved back after grad school to the area in 2008, and I met Mike Suave almost right away, who is the co-founder of the Blind Spots. It started as kind of an acoustic duet, and then we decided we didn't really want to play coffee houses, we want to play bigger festivals, and so we started adding players right away and morphed into the Blind Spots in like 2009. It all happened pretty quickly. He's now my husband. We got married in 2014, and we started touring quite a bit around that time, actually 2013. So I guess the band first was formed with just like a bunch of friends that were playing music. I was house sitting for an aunt of mine out in the country this winter, and we would just have these big jam sessions, and then it got pared down to Suave, me, the keyboardist and bassist, and then we started playing some shows out, and we didn't get really off the ground for another few years to start touring, but we played the region pretty heavily, the Finger Lakes region first. And yeah, we've been touring. Aside from the little blip that was the pandemic, we've been touring pretty hard that entire time. It did take us a little while to get restarted after that because we ended up kind of just working with friends, like personnel shift because of the pandemic. We ended up just sort of working with some friends, and those friends who are great musicians were not really wanting to tour, so it took us a little while to get a team that was ready to get back out there and basically just to be just as crazy as Suave and I are, and want to continue to travel with music. So yeah, we just returned home pretty recently from the 2-week tour south, which was great. It felt really good to get back out.
And you have a new addition to the band. In addition to the amazing players that you have, you've got a little baby.
Yes. This was the first tour with our baby, Rhodey Rocket. He did great. I would say so he's 9 months now. After the first couple of shows on the tour, I kind of had this what am I doing? Who do I think I am taking a little baby on tour? I was exhausted, and it was like a crazy schedule, and we were driving long distances between a bunch of the shows. But then about halfway through, well, we did have 2 days off in the middle, and about halfway through, everybody rested, but then we also just really hit our stride, and everybody in the band sort of formed their own unique relationship with him. And we did bring a friend along to sort of act as his
I was going to
nanny
ask.
while we were actually playing the shows. Yeah.
Right.
At first I was like, oh, I can totally do this. I know people in this city, like in Tallahassee, Ruthie will hold him, and in St. Augustine, Lauren will hold him. But that was crazy. That was a crazy idea.
Yeah.
So,
And
so we
he's
brought one person.
and he's not able to do, monitor sound just yet. So
Not yet.
yeah.
Not yet. But I mean, he's completely surrounded by instruments, so we'll see which one he gravitates toward.
So talk about the players that went along with you. I know Michael Wu. He's also in front and main, and I know he's an amazing player. Who else do you have in the band that toured?
Well, Mike Suave, so he's my husband and co-founder, guitar player, co-songwriter of The Blind Spots, and Erin Fumarola, our long-time drummer. And then we actually just hired, her name's Roz Menikoff. She's from Rochester, and we actually auditioned her in the fall for a backup singer position that was open, and she showed up not knowing that we were simultaneously auditioning for keyboard players. She showed up knowing all of our material on keys, so that was a pretty easy hire. She is Berklee School of Music trained, really fantastic singer and a great keyboardist as well, and she's like exactly the right age. She's to do what we do. She doesn't have any there are no major commitments at home and big bills to pay. She's like fresh out of college and super talented. So Roz, and then Michael Wu, as you said. So it's the unit of 5. And then we had our friend Deb come along too. She helped with roadie, but she also, if there were times where I was sitting in the van with the baby, she would go and help set up merch, and she's helpful in a million ways. So it was six people and a little baby in the van.
So you were performing before while you were pregnant?
Yeah, oh yeah. I performed pretty much till 2 weeks up until he was born.
So he's already been on stage.
He has. And he's been to a lot of concerts already too. I went to a lot of shows when I was pregnant. Fish and Bruce Springsteen and Lucius. He saw, while he was in utero, heard a lot of music. And then, and I started Finger Lakes Grassroots Festival of Music and Dance, which is one of our favorite shows all year. Just so happened to fall 2.5 weeks after he was born. So I did play that show. I played 2 sets at the festival, and then I took a month off. But I didn't want to miss it, and I didn't want him to miss it either. I wanted Grassroots to be a part of his story, just like it's a part of ours.
So I want to talk about the Grassroots Festival, and I also want to talk about the Another World Festival. Mm-hmm. But why don't we play a song? Why don't you tell us about Where Are the Monsters?
Where the Monsters was written in the living room of an Airbnb in the Coachella Valley when the band was broken down. We got stranded in Indio, California for 16 days, and we did what any stranded band would do. We wrote the better part of the album Talk while we were there at the Airbnb in the desert. So this is actually the only song that was sort of written about that experience, about being stranded out there.
All right, this is Where Are the Monsters, right here on the Be Original Show, WBDY 99.5 FM. Maddy, not only do you have this amazing voice, very powerful and soulful, but your writing, the melodies are so strong, and the music is so super, super catchy. I know we're going to talk about the festivals, but what's your writing process like with Suave?
Well, it's proven over the years that we have a really good writing partnership. We both wrote a lot of material before we met, but I think when we met each other, we kind of hold each other accountable and get better results. Because we're also a husband and wife team, that means maybe leaving the room and being in separate spaces sometimes so that we can complete a part. We don't always agree. And so that sometimes means like he will come in with a part, like a riff on guitar that I really like. I always have some lyrics kicking around, and sometimes they fit, or sometimes I write to the moment. And we kind of like come together and then part ways, go into separate spaces, and then bring pieces of the songs back together. So say he's got like a verse and a chorus part. I'll be working on the lyrics and the melody in a different room, and then we come back together, and then split up again, and then I might come back and he'll say, "Oh, I've got this. What do you think about this for a bridge?" And then I'll go and work on my own again. So it's never exactly the same, but I think it's worked for us over the past. I mean, together we've put out 6 records now. 2
Nice.
under the Blind Spots, or sorry, 2 under my name solo, which are still collaborations, and then 4 as the Blind Spots, and a handful of singles as well. And they're all co-writes pretty much. The very first record that we did in 2010 was more some songs that he brought to the table and songs that I brought to the table, and a few collaborations. And then pretty much from then on, we've been working together.
So once you get a song together, then how does that work with the rest of the band?
Suave is quite a composer, so often he's writing counter melodies as he's developing the song. So a keyboard part or a bass part may already be written by the time we bring it to the band. Not necessarily, but he often has things pretty well mapped out. And then, of course, when you bring it to a group, everybody adds their own unique stylings to it also. But we have pretty much the majority of a song fleshed out before we bring it to the table.
Now, the band sounds as if they kind of ride the indie rock, electronica, pop, kind of like this really cool blend. Did you both come from that, or coming together, it became that?
I think it became that. We didn't set out to make exactly that. We call it Moxie Rock, which is our own sort of brand of.
Could you explain that? I saw that Moxie Rock, and I was like, wait a minute, what is that?
So Moxie, just meaning like having a lot of punch and attitude, and but we spell it with a Y because Maddy is spelled with a Y instead of IE. And it's just sort of our own blend of poppy, punchy, glammy, sort of new wave rock and roll that should be like, it's high energy, but it's also got a certain polish to it that certain crunchier rock and roll doesn't have. Although we do get that way sometimes in live shows. We'll go out on some limbs and play some jammier stuff. But it's a little poppier and more polished, and it kind of goes with the whole aesthetic of the sequins and the white go-go boots, and so we just developed that name as sort of it is indie pop rock still, but it's our own sort of brand of it.
I love it. I haven't been to a show yet, but I'm definitely going to. But I do like the whole vibe, and the whole focus on love, peace and love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both come from sort of hippie background, I guess, not only in like within my family, but Suave was in a band in the North Country up in the Adirondack region called the South Catherine Street Jug Band for many years, and they had 2 different school buses and lived in a band house and did a lot of touring, and so he comes from that place, and even if you don't like aesthetically see it, it's certainly a huge part of our messaging. It's an undeniable message, really.
Absolutely.
Can't argue that.
It's what the world needs. So talk about the Another World Festival and your Grassroots Festival.
So Another World, this will be its second year in this coming September. It was started by some dear friends of ours, Jill Howard and Eric Dash, who are married. They're husband and wife team as well. We met them years ago when the Blind Spots played a show at a brewery called Elk Creek Cafe and Ale Works right in their very small town of like Millheim, Coburn. It's considered the Valley. It's just outside of State College, Pennsylvania. And so we had booked a show there and played, and I think actually Jill wasn't there for it the first night, but Eric was, and we ended up going back to his house and singing around a campfire for hours, thus starting a friendship that would last so far in this lifetime. And we we love them dearly. And they started showing up at a lot of our shows, whether we were in town or not. They started traveling to see us. They popped up to see us in Delaware as a surprise, and Miami, and among other places.
Wow.
So they became fans first, and then dear friends. And I can say that I introduced them to the Grassroots Festival, which they fell in love with. And so they got an RV and started coming to Grassroots to see us, and then got to know a bunch of other bands that they loved. And I remember sitting with them at the campsite and saying, well, Donna the Buffalo is coming on. They're doing their Saturday night set, and that's something that I don't miss at Grassroots. I have to be there on Saturday night. And they were both really tired, maybe a little hungover, and didn't want to go. And I was like, you guys, no, I'm serious. Like, they're the host band of the festival, and you're going to thank me later. And they have since become some of the biggest Donna the Buffalo fans that I know out there. And Donna the Buffalo has some rabid fans. So, so they started coming to the Grassroots Festival, fell in love with Donna, followed Donna around as well, and started attending some of the other festivals that Donna the Buffalo plays. And I think through all of that, and through just like really, at the risk of sounding really cliche and cheesy, it's like the high vibrations that you can receive and that are sustaining in your everyday life after attending a music festival are incomparable. You can't achieve those sort of like feelings of connectivity to other humans in any other format. And I think that they got addicted to it in the same way that I did. And so I think that's what led to them wanting to start their own festival, wanting to provide that sense of community for people in their home region of the Valley in Pennsylvania.
I guess that makes a lot of sense with all the music, the vibrations. We're all vibration, and then other people feeling the same way. It's like a huge, I guess, antenna for love. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's totally true, and I'm sold on it. And every time I'm away from a festival, I haven't been to one in a little while. You start it feels like you're losing a bit of that, and then you just get rejuvenated every time, and you're reminded of how good things can be when we all put aside the difficulties of our mundane, get up, go to work the same time every day, those kinds of patterns that we could find ourselves in. And when people show up for a music festival, they're all there for the same reason. They're there to appreciate each other, and by way of music and art. So it's a beautiful thing, and I think you can carry those feelings with you out into like the quote unquote real world for a while until you get to the next festival, and then it sustains.
I love it. I want to talk about being named the best band in Ithaca, but first let's play another track. Let's play Trampoline. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Trampoline was another one that was written during that time that we were stranded in the Coachella Valley with a van breakdown. I think we wrote maybe 5 or 6 of the songs on the record Talk when we were stranded out there. So I think at least 2 or 3 of the ones that we're playing today were written there. And this was actually written for some dear friends of mine. I've actually never talked about who this was written for. They had lost their son, and he was 22 or 23. They lost him in an accident, and I was thinking so much about them and how they would be moving forward and helping each other. And so this was written for them.
All right. This is Trampoline by Maddy Walsh and the Blind Spots right here on the Be Original Show, WBDY 99.5 FM, Binghamton. What a great song of love and support.
Thank you.
So you're super supportive to, in this song. Who were the people around you growing up that supported you in your musical path?
I have really great parents. I'm really lucky. I think a lot of people who follow an artistic path, unfortunately, don't have the support of their parents because it's not a very practical path, and there's no guarantee. So you can, with certain paths, you can take the collegiate route and sort of guarantee yourself a job at the end of it. But with the arts, there's a certain fluidity and mysticism to it, and there's no real guarantee that you're going to achieve any quantifiable part of, and nothing like like the gaugeable success that somebody would say, like, well, they're making enough money and they're playing in front of this many people, or they're on the Today Show, and so like this clearly they've like quote unquote made it. The arts is so much more fluid, and I think a lot of people don't get supported, and there are members of my family and Suave's family who are utterly confused by us and our path. But thankfully for me, it's not been my parents. My dad is a musician. He was, had a career job as a high school English teacher, and then became an administrator at the end. But he's been a musician my whole life, and so I grew up going to see his shows.
That's great.
Yeah, and he, even like at the age of around 60, I would say, he taught himself how to engineer his own material. So he's been toying around with a recording program in his home studio and has taught himself all kinds of new tricks. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I know he loves when I say that. But yeah, so my parents have both been super supportive. I can bounce ideas creatively off of him. And we also have an acoustic duet, which is a pretty unique thing, called Mad Daddy, that we book when the blind spots aren't playing.
I think I saw that on Instagram. Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And, when I was younger, it was totally lost on me how cool and unique, special it is. But as we both get older, it becomes more and more clear how special it is. So that's a unique relationship. And then my mom is just the ultimate cheerleader mom. She's just, she's dauntless. She will never lose faith in what I'm doing. Very lucky.
So speaking about quantifiable standards or achievements, hey, Mom and Dad, we're the best band in Ithaca. Congratulations on that. 2 years, 2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years in a row, which is a total surprise because there are a lot of really great bands in this town, as you sort of mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
in the show.
lots of great talent.
Yeah, such a wealth of great bands and musical talent, especially in Ithaca with both Ithaca College and Cornell. It brings, or like bumps our population up doubly. So we go from being like 30,000 people in Ithaca to 60 with the students. And IC is a big music school, so a lot of musical talent comes to this very small town, and a lot of people stick around. So it was a total honor and a surprise, especially the second year. I will say that as far as like being a band that tours and gets out of town, I don't think many are doing that right now. And it'll come back around. It always does. But I think right now we might be one of the only ones in Ithaca proper that's doing a lot of touring, or sets out to do a lot of touring. And of course, you've got Down in the Buffalo and Driftwood and Chimcata doing some touring. But I think as far as like Ithaca-centered bands, so that is one thing that would set us apart. I don't know if that makes us just maybe foolish because we go out there.
Not necessarily better, but
no, not better. Just maybe like a little crazier,
right?
But yeah, it was a surprise both times and a total honor. And I do love calling Ithaca home. It's a really wonderful place of music loving people. So.
And you talked a little bit about your dad doing some recording. Where do you usually record? Because honestly, your music can be played at iHeartRadio or whatever these huge radio conglomerates or labels or whatever. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just great music.
I hope you're right.
Right. Hope it's going that way. So where do you record?
So this past record, it's unreleased. So we have a completed record that will be released sometime soon, but we don't have a release date. And I think we're going to start by releasing a single. I want to make sure that we're not releasing it to the same fans that we have, and we spend a lot of money and time and effort on it. And so I'm going to do a little bit more back-end administrative work on it before I just release it. But anyway, so each record has been recorded in a different place with different engineers. This one was very special in that we recorded in a bunch of different places. It was pretty much started just over a year ago. We did drums and bass at New Vine Studios right at home in Ithaca. which is a studio that's since dissipated, unfortunately. But they did really great drum and bass sounds. We then went down to Florida and did our synth, keys, and percussion in Miami. And then we did guitars in St. Augustine with an engineer and a really great guitarist that we know there. And then we did my vocals in Nashville at a studio called Awake with producer Nick Bullock. So we did it kind of all over. And then we had Jocko, Jason Randall, who has a studio in Syracuse, do the mixing. And then the mastering was done by an engineer named Stephen Dewey, who works for Sony in New York. So it was done. I mean, this is kind of the wild thing about recording in 2024. It's like you don't have to set aside a week or 3 weeks or a month or whatever to just dedicate to being in a studio. You can really record in a number of different places, which is really liberating when you want to work with a bunch of different people, especially the musicians, but engineers as well. And as long as you have files that you could like fly around from studio to studio, it works. It was the first time we'd ever done this, and we did have to make sure that like every time we had a different session, things were saved in multiple places so we didn't lose any of the pieces. And some of the engineers were working in different programs, so that was a little tricky logistically. But it was really fun, and what it allowed us to do was to have all of these really talented musicians that we have befriended over many years of touring to get their unique voicings on the record. So I am really excited about this one. I'm really proud of it. And we don't have a total set release date yet because we're kind of trying to do some back-end work to get it the exposure I feel it deserves. But yeah, before that, I mean, we've worked at Pyramid Sound Studios, which is an incredible studio in Ithaca, New York. We have recorded a whole album at Awake Studios in Nashville. We've worked at Electric Wilburland, and I think that might be about it since the beginning. Oh, and there was a studio in Albany too for our first record. But yeah, all over the place. I guess there's no like formula, but this one is very different because we worked all over.
Well, it sounds amazing. Sounds like top notch. Absolutely perfection.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited about the new one, and I hope that we'll be able to have the single out maybe by June.
Okay, tell us a little bit about Your Turn.
Your Turn. Okay, so I put out 2 solo records in 2021, and Your Turn is the second track on the record, Human Made Thing. Human Made Thing is the title track. And Your Turn was written from a place of a lot of, I guess, frustration with our political climate. So that I don't piss too many people off, I'll just say that I was feeling very frustrated. We don't have to say in what way, but I think if people read into the lyrics or they listen to the song, they'll get a feel for why. And I was feeling, I guess, particularly disappointed in some things that seem to be going backwards in time, especially for women.
So let's take a listen to Your Turn right here on WBDY 99.5 FM. Be original. What was your favorite show on the tour this last time around?
Somebody else just asked me that, and I really don't know. I mean, there were a lot of cool places that we played. The last couple were pretty cool. We played in Knoxville, Tennessee, and then Louisville, Kentucky. And Knoxville is a very cool city. They've got like a commons, just like Ithaca, sort of, where there's, it's not, the cars aren't driving. It's like just a
an area where
shops and stuff. Right. And it's a music club right down there called Preservation Pub next to Scruffy City Hall, and they have they have bands all the time, and people are really warm and supportive of original music, which is nice. You don't find that necessarily in different pockets of Florida where people are there to be tourists and to hear Brown Eyed Girl 100 times. So it's like
right.
very, very different in a like music supporting city. And they did have a big outdoor stage. They do like a summer concert series that I found out about just outside of the bar that we played. So I asked people while we were playing there if anybody had any contacts for booking the bigger stage out there, because we'd love to return. So that was a cool one. And then a friend of ours who has a small record label and promotes mostly metal shows, put on the show for us in Louisville, Kentucky. And he also cooked for us. He's a fantastic chef by day. And he works best shrimp and grits in the country I've ever had are at Breakfast AF in Louisville, Kentucky. So if you ever find yourself there, ask for Reagan. And so he cooked for the band before, and then we had a good show with 3 other bands on the bill. He put together a really great bill, and we got to hear some great music that night too. And it was the last night of the tour, so everybody was feeling really good, and we just went totally bananas on stage and sold all of our merch for half price because we were like, we're going home
Get
tomorrow.
rid of it.
So, yeah, so that was a really fun one. But we had great shows. It was, as Michael Wu, our bass player, said, it was a real builder. Like, we started in Durham, North Carolina, with a good friend, Emily Mussolino, who's an incredible guitarist and singer. But it was a Wednesday night, which isn't the best night for shows, unfortunately.
Right.
And then, the audience, the number of people in the audience just grew pretty much every night throughout the tour, which is not the way that it happens. That was just kind of that was random, but it's a good arc for a tour to have it go that way.
That's great.
So I wouldn't say that we had any bad shows. There wasn't any that was like, oh, I wish we had done this. They're all worthwhile in different ways.
So I was when I saw that you went to Kentucky, I was like, wow, that's kind of odd. Like they were staying down in the Florida, East Coast area, and then they bounced over there. Looking towards the future, are you going back? Are you going different places? What's in store for the Blind Spot fans?
Yeah, we'll definitely get back to Louisville. It's a great city, actually. It's really cool. There's a great music scene there. A lot of bands working really hard, and the club that we played called Zanzibar was very cool. So we'll definitely go back. I think in October we're going to do another 2-week tour, and it will be more. It'll be south still, but like in a little southwest, out to that neck of the woods, but maybe not as far down into Florida as we went. And then we'll do another in February that'll take us all the way down. We haven't gotten out west in a few years. I would really like to, but it is expensive because you're traveling longer distances between shows. So it takes some really strategic planning, and it requires a bigger chunk of time for everybody. 6-7 weeks is probably the shortest you can do it in. So that's why we haven't done that in a little while. I would love to, but I would need more help booking. We're still all DIY over here, and we would need some more help getting that together. Yeah,
you had mentioned that you were having it mastered by someone from Sony, and so my immediate thought was like, oh, well, what's going on with that? Are there any connections, or are you maybe is anyone looking at you? Do you want to go that way?
I hope so. This particular connection is not that. That's his day job. He's a mastering engineer for Sony, and he was an Ithaca college student, and so and that's where he landed. That's the job he landed after college. But I've worked with him on both of my solo records. He's the engineer producer for both of those. Stephen Dewey. He's a real talent and is super fair. He's also in a band, so he knows what it's like to slog it out in the indie way.
Yeah.
And so yes, as I've been saying for years, my aspirations are unabashedly large, but I also am happy just doing what I'm doing. If you set out on this path and do it for fame or money, you're probably in the wrong business. Because it's such a teeny tiny percentage of people who reach those heights. So you better just love the day to day, love making music, which I do.
And like you and your band is super, super talented, great music and great live show, and there's just a lot of talent all over.
Yeah, I think so, especially in a day and age when streaming is the norm and everybody can record it in a basement with the right equipment. It's not like you have to get some record deal and a big advance to go into a big studio to create something anymore. Anybody can create, and while that's really awesome, and it makes creating recordings more accessible and possible for people, it also makes it a lot harder to be seen in a huge stack of musicians. There are total benefits to the whole streaming world and the ability to create your own recordings, but there are detriments as well.
There's something about making those connections when you go on the road and making those connections with the people that come to see you.
I always tell people, where touring is like, it's not necessarily, at least at our level, it's not necessarily like a money maker. It is beneficial to bands in all sorts of unquantifiable ways. You come home from a tour with all of these new friendships and connections and places to play the next time. Like, okay, we played this town, but maybe this wasn't the right venue. Or, next time we come through, we're going to stay with these people. Or we met this other band and we're going to co-bill with them. And then they're going to come up here in the summer and do a co-bill with us up here. We'll do show trades. So there are just so many things, I think, so much less happens when a band just stays at home. Mm-hmm. And it's even some of it, it might sound kind of silly, but some of it is just like the time together in the van, the like necessary bonding, which then translates, it transfers over into the tightness of the music itself.
It really makes it special.
Yeah, being connected to people in that way and having to, it's not always easy, of course. Like, there's a lot of long hours driving, a lot of waiting around, a lot of lugging gear, and it's not like all of it is super fun and glamorous.
Right.
There are a lot of parts that are difficult, but that bonds people.
Absolutely.
So those things are really invaluable too. Just spending the time with your bandmates. And walking into a coffee shop as a unit, there's just something special about that. You meet people in a way that you wouldn't in other formats of travel.
I don't want to forget to talk about your videos, because I saw something about Lighthouse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I do have that song. Do you mind if we play that song next after you tell us a little bit about the song and the video for it?
Yeah, not at all. I just released the video for it on Friday. And I don't know why I waited so long. So the record came out in 2021, and we made a video for every single song on the record, and we showed it when we did our album release at the Hangar Theater in Ithaca. I released both albums. So we released the Tunnel Sessions, which is a more like meditative pandemic-inspired record that was sort of like okay, so Human Made Thing was finished and it was ready for release, and then the pandemic hit, and I really wanted to release it to a live audience, so I sat on it, just waited. And then while we were waiting for the world to open back up, we created the Tunnel Sessions, which was aimed at sort of just offering people some soothing during really uncertain times, and we released it without much fanfare at all, but it was just like this, it just needs to come out. And so that was just released online. And then when things did open back up, I did a show at the Hangar Theater to release both albums, and then we showed all 6 videos for the Human Made Thing record. So we played, I think the way we did it, we played the Human Made Thing record in its entirety live. We played the Tunnel Sessions live in its entirety. We showed all of the videos for Human Made Thing back to back with some transition pieces. And then we played the Human Made Thing record, and then we did a third set of like just some additional songs and brand new stuff and cover songs. So I had created 6 videos for every song on that record, and finally got around to releasing, I think it's the 5th to last, so we only have one more to release now, and that's for the song Look Up. So this was the second to last song that we had a video for, and it was perfect timing because it is a song about touring and coming home.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's going to take us out and finish the show. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and talking about the band. When you do release another album, will you come back and talk about it?
Of course, I would love to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let everybody know where you can find Maddy Walsh and the Blind Spots, your socials and the website and whatever platforms.
Yeah, so the Blind Spots website is just theblindspots.com. My solo work is on maddywalsh.net currently, but within the next month, I would say by the end of April, we'll have a new website go live, maddywalsh.com. So right now it's .net, but it will very soon be .com. And we are in all the places. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc.
Nice.
Twitter too, but I'm not very active on there. I'm trying to get better about TikTok. It's just it's a little daunting to stay in all the places.
Yeah,
but
it is.
We are in all the places.
Yeah.
And Spotify as well. I always try to encourage people to, tune in other ways and support artists in other ways besides just streaming, because artists get fractions of pennies for their streams on Spotify.
Good point.
So so supporting bands by showing up to the shows and even just following on different social media platforms and, giving likes and comments and sharing things around when we release a new music video, sharing things around is super, super helpful to us in the indie world. And buying that merchandise. We do have something cool at our live shows that's not on our website, which I'll talk about real quick.
That? Yeah.
We have the Blind Spots thrift shop at all of our live shows, and what we do is go around to different thrift stores when we're traveling, or when we're home too, and we get a bunch of really wacky, not all wacky, some of them are normal, some of them are just like t-shirts, tank tops, and hoodies and stuff.
Some choice picks.
Items.
Right.
And then we work with a local printing company called Independent Print Company based in Richford, New York, and they print our logo on all of the stuff. So it is better for the environment, and people get to pick their own unique pieces. And that's something that we reserve just for the live shows. So we always encourage people to come out and support the band. And we can also afford to do it for cheaper. We can sell the thrift shop items for cheaper than like our standard printed t-shirts that we have on the rack too.
That is a great idea.
It's super fun. It was Suave's idea. I'll give him credit warmly. But people love it, and I love to see people shopping and picking out like a 90s windbreaker with the Blind Spots logo printed on it. And then I love seeing it out in the world too. So that's just a fun live show thing, and we hope to see people at a live show sometime soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Maddy. This is Lighthouse from Maddy Walsh and the Blind Spots, and you're listening to Be Original, WBDY 99.5 FM.